You're listening to The People's Voice, September 8th to 15th, 2024. On August 9th, marking the 79th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Nagasaki, the city chose not to invite Israel to its annual commemoration. This decision came after Nagasaki officials criticized Israel's actions in Gaza and wrote to the Israeli embassy calling for a ceasefire. They claimed that Israel was not invited to the event, citing concerns about potential disruptions due to the tensions in the Middle East. Nagasaki's mayor emphasized that the decision was not political, but aimed at ensuring the ceremony could proceed peacefully. In response, Israel's ambassador accused the mayor of using security as an excuse for political motivations. Several Western countries, including Canada, the US, and members of the European Union, protested Israel's exclusion, threatening to reduce their participation in the event. As a result, some ambassadors sent lower-ranking representatives in their place. The Western boycott led to protests in Tokyo, with citizens expressing outrage and accusing Western officials of betraying Nagasaki's message of peace. Protesters carried Palestinian flags and banners, voicing opposition to Israel's policies. At the same time, critics condemned Canada's stance, highlighting the country's ongoing support for Israel despite widespread calls for a ceasefire in Gaza and grassroots protests. Canada has consistently supported Israel in votes at the United Nations, including a recent vote against condemning Israel's illegal settlements in the West Bank. This situation has raised questions about the role of Western countries, including Canada, in advocating for peace while supporting Israel's actions. Critics argue that Canada's foreign policy no longer reflects a commitment to peacekeeping and neutrality, as the country continues to take sides in international conflicts and defend Israel amid its genocide in Gaza. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the US military allegedly conducted a secret psyop aimed at undermining China's Sinovac vaccine, causing the virus to spread in various countries. This covert operation, which started under Trump and continued under Biden, involved discrediting Chinese vaccines through fake social media accounts, leading to increased infections and deaths, particularly in the Philippines and several Muslim-majority countries. The operation, based in Tampa, Florida, used disinformation to discourage the use of Chinese vaccines, thereby exacerbating the pandemic's impact in targeted regions. This strategy was intended to harm China's global influence and prevent positive relations between China and recipient countries. The operation's focus on damaging China's reputation was prioritized over public health concerns, resulting in significant loss of life. August 9th marked the 30th anniversary of the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples, established by the UN General Assembly in 1994. This day highlights the cultural diversity, historical contributions, and ongoing struggles of Indigenous communities. Despite their resilience and resistance to colonialism and capitalism, Indigenous peoples continue to face systemic discrimination and violations of their rights, including the exploitation of their lands without full consent. Indigenous peoples make up around 6% of the global population, but represent a significant portion of the world's cultural diversity, speaking over 4,000 languages and possessing crucial ecological knowledge. They also face severe economic and social disparities, with a higher rate of extreme poverty and lower earnings compared to non-Indigenous people. The day underscores the need for genuine self-determination for Indigenous communities, as many governments still fail to fully respect their rights or obtain informed consent for projects on Indigenous lands. Efforts towards reconciliation and apologies are important, but they must be accompanied by meaningful actions to address these fundamental issues. In a groundbreaking development for healthcare in Manitoba, Canada will open its first Indigenous-led peer-supported safer consumption site in Winnipeg in 2025. Announced on July 12th, the site aims to address the severe drug poisoning crisis in Manitoba, where 445 deaths occurred last year, including 56 in January alone. The Safe Consumption Site will offer a harm reduction approach, including trained staff to prevent overdoses, a safe space for consuming drugs, needle exchange, on-site testing, and connections to health and social services. The site's design emphasizes cultural continuity and decolonized healthcare, integrating a 5-pronged model with drop-in services, primary care, mental health support, day programs, and links to addictions medicine. Supported by various local organizations and funded in part by a $2.5 million provincial budget allocation, The safe consumption site follows years of advocacy by community groups. The site aims to provide compassionate care while addressing systemic issues related to drug use, including inadequate housing, poverty, and racism. The safe consumption site is expected to build on the success of the mobile overdose prevention site, which has been effective in preventing overdoses and providing essential harm reduction services despite facing funding challenges. Scientists have long warned about the devastating impact of burning fossil fuels, with increasingly intense summers and uncontrollable wildfires becoming common worldwide, including in Canada. In August, the town of Jasper, Alberta was largely destroyed by wildfires, highlighting the severity of the climate crisis. Despite such disasters, politicians like Alberta Premier Danielle Smith continue to support fossil fuel expansion, which is the primary driver of climate change. British Columbia also faces frequent wildfires, with over 2,245 fires burning 2 million hectares in 2023 alone. While 2024's wildfire season has been somewhat less severe, the threat remains high, exacerbated by BC's continued reliance on fossil fuels, particularly liquefied natural gas, extracted through fracking. Fracking not only depletes water resources, but releases methane, a greenhouse gas far more harmful than CO2. Despite these environmental disasters, fossil fuel companies and banks, such as the Royal Bank of Canada, continue to profit massively, with RBC funding billions in fossil fuel development. The wildfires in Jasper, BC, like other ecological disasters globally, are caused by capitalism's destructive nature. Capitalism cannot be reformed to address the climate crisis, and therefore needs to be transcended and replaced with a socialist system that provides the solutions to protect both the people and the planet. The National Farmers Union Convention, held in Peace River, highlighted the multiple challenges facing Alberta's farm and food security. These include the increasing threat of wildfires, the damaging effects of oil extraction on soil and water, and the dominance of agribusiness. The convention passed resolutions emphasizing solidarity with Cuba, advocating for reduced military spending in favor of food security, and calling for Alberta to remain in the Canadian Pension Plan for farmers' financial security. Presentations at the convention addressed the need for a national seed program to counter pharmaceutical and agribusiness monopolies and raised concerns about the environmental impacts of the Grassy Mountain coal mine. Delegates expressed frustration with the United Conservative Party government, citing its negative impact on farmers, and voiced support for the Woodland Cree First Nation in its resource dispute with Obsidian Energy. Key issues discussed included the critical importance of protecting topsoil and waterways from the detrimental effects of oil pipelines and fracking, which deplete soil health and disrupt water systems. The convention also highlighted the demographic shift as young people move to urban areas, urging a focus on urban farming and organizing farm workers to strengthen advocacy for rural communities. On July 30th, the Coalition Against Workplace Discrimination, which includes the Public Service Alliance of Canada, released an internal report exposing severe discrimination at the Privy Council office. The Privy Council office, responsible for managing the public service and supporting the Prime Minister, was found to have systemic issues including racial stereotyping, microaggressions, and verbal abuse, particularly affecting Black, Indigenous, and racialized employees, who were disproportionately placed in temporary and lower-level positions compared to their white counterparts. The report, compiled by Dr. Rachel Zellers, revealed a workplace culture that normalizes these practices and lacked effective mechanisms for accountability. Despite previous calls for action to address racism and improve equity and inclusion, the findings indicate that little progress has been made, with the Corporate Services Department at the Privy Council office being a major barrier to meaningful change. The Public Service Alliance of Canada and other advocates are calling for urgent and concrete measures to address systemic racism, including the appointment of a Black Equity Commissioner, amendments to the Employment Equity Act, and restitution for Black public sector workers who have experienced discrimination. After a 14-month strike, hotel workers at Sheraton Vancouver Airport have ratified a new collective agreement, ending the strike and lifting the boycott of Sheraton and its sister hotels. The agreement secured by Unite Here Local 40 includes a 30.5% wage increase over the contract's duration, with workers earning $26 an hour and over $30 an hour by the end of the contract in 2026. The new contract also features return-to-work bonuses, increased gratitudes for banquet workers, improved tip protections, new health benefits, and additional sick days. Workers, including longtime employees Anna Wong and Russell Jameson, expressed pride in the gains achieved and their excitement to return to work. The strike, which began on June 14, 2023, received strong support from the labor movement, community allies, and hotel customers. Unite Here Local 40's president, Zelda Chan, highlighted the union's commitment and the positive outlook for future relations with the employer. That's all for now. If you're interested in strengthening working-class press here in Canada, consider lending your support to the People's Voice Fund Drive at pvonline.ca/donate.